Welcome, Coach Erick community. Thank you so much for joining me today for our guided painting lesson. My name is Eric, and I'm one of Coach Erick's program managers based out of the Los Angeles office. For the folks that don't know who Coach Erick is, we're a nonprofit organization that provides free arts and athletics lessons to students impacted by chronic illness. Currently, we're only within the state of California, but we are soon going to be offering programs to students across the nation, so stay tuned for that. And as far as today's guided painting lesson, we are going to be painting this artwork here that's inspired by the fall equinox. So the fall equinox is a celestial event that happens once a year where the sun is at the top of the equator and it signifies the start of fall. It also is that the one time of the year where both the daylight and the nightlight are the same length, so 12 hours for each. The equinoxes happen twice a year, actually, one of them signifying springtime and the other fall. And the fall equinox was actually this past Tuesday, so we can all give summer a awesome farewell and welcome fall. Awesome. So as far as today's materials go, we're going to be using a 11 by 14 canvas panel, and we're going to be using our 5 colors that we typically use, which include our primary colors, so our yellow, our red, and our blue, and we also want to use black and white. And then as far as the brushes go, we are going to be using our 2 trusty brushes. Our first one is going to be the flat brush. We're going to be using this one for the most part. And then we're going to be using a small rounded brush. The smallest one you have would be the best. That way we can make sure our branches are a little bit, or the size that we want them to be, right? And we're also going to be using the very tip of either a pencil or a pen. That way we can do little stars on our canvas. Next, just make sure you have a cup of water so you can clean off your brushes as you move along. Some paper towels and either some paper plates to be used as a palette, but also to fan off some of the sections so we can speed up the drying process. If you have a recycled piece of cardboard, that can work, or if you have like an actual palette, that'd be awesome too. Then that way we are good to go. So I'll give you a couple of seconds to collect that while I get situated here. All right, so the artwork. This artwork is fairly easy. There aren't that many steps. We just want to be careful that we make sure that each section is symmetrical. So if we were to flip it this way, it should look the same, right? And it's to signify the equinox, right? So the day part is going to be the same length as the night part. So we just want to make sure we keep that in mind as we move along with our painting. But okay, we can go ahead and get started. So we're going to place our painting, our canvas in a vertical position, and I'll be showing you the model as we move forward. That way you can use it as a reference point. And we're going to start off with the background. So we're going to do the top section, which is the day part. So for that, we're going to be using our yellow and our red. So right now, if you can go ahead and pour about a quarter size of red, so like the size of an actual quarter, and then a quarter size of the yellow. We're going to be using our flat brush, so just make sure it's good to go. You can dip it in some water to soften the bristles of the paintbrush. So we are going to do an orange color on our palette. So if you mix a little bit of your red with your yellow, you should get a nice orange, and we're going to go ahead and paint the top section with this color. So our canvas, this canvas is 14 inches long, so we're going to divide each section in half, right? So if you're following with this size of canvas, you want to go downwards about 7 inches. But if you have a different size, you just want to make sure you calculate the half. So once you add the yellow, we're going to start painting. Sorry, once you add the orange, we'll start painting with the yellow. We'll just keep doing the horizontal brush strokes. Right here, it's okay if your colors begin to mix a little bit. The strongest part is going to be at the very top, where we see a little bit more of the orange. Where in the bottom section, we're going to become a little bit lighter with our colors, and we're going to start using mostly yellow. Awesome. So before it dries out, we want to go ahead and clean off our brush to get rid of the excess orange. That way we can start painting with our yellow. We can go ahead and make like a little marker down here to give us an idea of like how far we have to go down. And then everything in between, you can go ahead and paint it with a yellow mostly. But again, it's okay if some sections end up being a little bit darker than the others with a little bit more orange. We just want to make sure that this bottom section is the lightest. That way when we put our sun, it'll look nice, right? Great, so you want to make sure that each line is nicely smooth. So just take your time spreading out the paint. Down here, it's okay if you go over a little bit. We're going to be covering some of that section with black, so it's okay. We'll be able to hide it. So once you've covered the entire canvas with the yellow, we want to make sure we go over each of the brush strokes from one end to the other, just like this. That way we smooth out each of the brush strokes that we've taken, and we have a more unison background. There you go. Awesome. So let me show you where we're at so far. Cool. So we're actually going to go ahead now and work on the bottom section. So we just want to do the background for each of the sections. So for this next part, you can go ahead and just flip the canvas upside down. And then that way we can start working with the bottom section. In this case, the top section, right? Just want to make sure that I get this bottom part that wasn't painted. All right. Okay, so we're not going to be using these colors for a bit. So you can go ahead and clean off your flat brush, and we're going to switch gears, and we're going to start using our blue. So for the blue section, or the night section, we have 3 different shades of color that we'll be using. So if you notice at the very center, this is going to be like our truest blue color, right? The color that comes out of your paint bottle. But then at the bottom, we'll be mixing in a little bit of white to make it a little bit lighter. And then at the very top, we're going to be mixing a little bit of black just to make it a little bit darker. Just make sure that that we use these three shades of the same color. That way, there is a gradual transition of the evening, and it looks nice. Okay, so as far as the blue section, you can go ahead and pour some blue out. I always do about a quarter size, so the size of a quarter. And if I need more, I just keep on pouring a little bit more after that. But you can go ahead and start painting the midsection in the same way. So you want to go from one side to the other in a horizontal position. But don't go too low. So we want to leave this section down here so we can make sure that when we add the white, it will be visible and there will be enough space for it to be there. All right, and before this paint dries out, we want to make sure we add the other two colors to it. And then we'll just go over it all as one once all the three shades are added. So for the bottom section, you can actually just start painting with white onto the canvas. So if you pour some white on your palette, you start painting with just the white, this bottom section here. And that way it's nicely, it stays a little bit lighter, right? It looks super, super cool once you start noticing that it's coming from a very, very dark space, and it becomes a lot lighter. So sometimes when you use white, we make a mistake to add too much of the other color that we want to blend in, and then it overpowers the white, right? So we won't, we end up seeing a whole different color. But for this section, sometimes you can just start painting with white on top of whatever color is already on your canvas. And then the white will activate it just a bit, enough for what you want. And it creates this nice little effect. Awesome. So remember, we're going to leave this little section here, this sliver, because this is going to be the ground section. And we're going to cover that with black. So just, there's no need to paint over it right now. All right, now for the top section, we're going to blend in a little bit of black. We're going to mix a little bit of black onto our blue. So on your blue, you can just pour a little smidge. It's going to look like just a little bit. So something like sorry. Something like this. There you go. And then you want to go ahead and start mixing those colors. Black is also a very strong color. So when you try to make a darker shade of a color using black, make sure you start very, very small. Whatever the amount you think is, half of that. And then you go ahead and you mix it, and if it's not what you want, then you can add a little bit more. So the color should end up being a little like this. right? It just becomes a little bit darker. It's more of a nightfall shade. It's a nice color. Nice blue. So we don't want to add too much. We just want it to be at the very, very top section. This is where we're going to add some stars. And it'll look super, super nice if the background is a little bit darker. Cool, so now that we've added our 3 shades, we're going to go over all of them with a little bit of blue to seal in the 3 shades. That way it's a smooth background. So with that, you just want to add some blue. This section here, we want to make sure that these 2 colors blend in, and that it's not a very visible distinction of the partition of where one color begins and the other one ends. So we want to make sure we blend that a little bit. And we'll do the same with the bottom section where we saw the light blue. So make sure. Awesome, so it's starting to look pretty cool. So now what we want to do is the same thing that we did at the bottom where we smooth out each of the brush strokes. So you'll do it, you can start from the very top and just go downwards. Just that when you're at the very bottom section, because it's a lighter section, we could probably skip that. That way it doesn't blend in with the darker shades. Cool. So there we have it. We have both of our sections. So we have our daytime and our nighttime. Now we can go ahead and start adding the black sections. So I actually started with the bottom section, or the top section, however you want to see it. So we'll go ahead and do that again. Here's a painting, what we've done so far, right? So again, one thing to keep in mind is that starting now, we want to make sure everything is symmetrical if we were to flip it this way. So whatever's on one side, it will have to be on the other side, and about the same length as well. Just everything will be the same, right? So just keep that in mind. So for the first section, we're going to just add a line for our ground section to give us a little bit of an idea of where the division is for each of the sections, right? So with black and using your flat brush, we'll just go ahead and make a line down here. It doesn't have to be a super straight line. This is just to give us a little marker right now. We'll be a little bit more detailed in a bit. So now that we have our ground section, we can go ahead and add the trunk of our tree. So for that, I actually started using now my round brush because it's a little bit thinner, help me with the detail, right? In painting, it's always easier to start smaller and then expand, as opposed to starting big and wanting to go a little bit smaller, right? So it's always best to start with a thinner brush. So this section has to be dry. We're gonna start painting. It's pretty dry now. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna give ourselves about 2.5 inches from the side of the canvas this way, going inwards, and that's gonna be our marker of where we want to start our tree. So here, you can go ahead and just go all the way up from here. Awesome, and then from here, we can go downwards, but you know what, let's actually wait till this bottom section is dry. So here is where our plates come in. So we have a plate, or we have if you have a plate, if you have some cardboard, you can go ahead and speed up the section so you can dry. That way, whatever we do at the top section, we can do at the bottom section right away, and that can help us with staying symmetrical. Okay, I think it's pretty dry now. So from here, I can just drag it down, and that way, that'll help me with staying a little bit symmetrical, right? You don't want to go all the way to the top. So now we want to start adding our branches before we add the foliage. And again, for this section, you want to make sure that whatever you add at the top, you want to add at the bottom. So from here, we'll just go downwards this way, right? So it's supposed to be like a mirror image, right? Almost as if the bottom section was like a lake or something, right? It's a little difficult, right, to gauge what's exactly the symmetry. I guess this way can be a little bit better if you flip it as you move along, right? And you flip it again. We don't need to give it that many branches. It's the foliage that's going to make it look super nice. Alright, so in this way, do it again. And this one will be the last one. We'll just do one on this side. Here. Awesome. So more or less it'll be the same, right? Now we can start adding the foliage section. So this section is actually pretty fun. It's an easy way to add leaves to your painting. So with a flat brush, you sort of just dab the sections that you want foliage on, right? So the very top, your branches. And it's okay if you have some of these sections that are just floating, right? That they're not necessarily touching anything. That actually makes it look a little bit more realistic. So what I'm going to do with this painting, I don't know if you start noticing that it's sort of like a pine cone, right? It's very thin at the top, starts spreading downwards, and it just closes down. So you can do that too. Awesome. And then we have our tree. So I'll go ahead and move along to the other side. That way I can see where I'm at as far as the symmetry goes. So if you do the same thing that you did, which was started from the top section here, I'm just dabbing with the flat brush. Awesome. Now, good test for you to see if it looks symmetrical is just flipping it, right? And of course, it's not going to be exactly perfect, but it sort of has the same shape, right? And that's where we wanna go with our trees. Actually, that looks pretty cool. Awesome. So we're good here with our trees. Now we want to make sure that the trunk is the size that we want it to be. So this bottom section here, the bottom section of the trunk, we're just gonna extend it outwards to make it look more like a triangle. That way, it'll signify the roots of the trunk, right? How they move, they don't stay, especially if it's a bigger tree. It's gonna have big, big roots. So we just give it a little triangle down here. That's already a good start. Right, so then we'll do the same at the bottom. Here you just sort of connect the corners. Right, now we can go ahead and go inwards, not too much, but just to make, just in case the first time around we didn't get the trunk right. I just want to fix some of the edges. Awesome. Cool. So now we want to fix the ground section. So remember we left a little sliver of white in between the blue and the yellow section. So we want to make sure we cover that entirely with the black. So you can just go from one section to the other, just making sure that there isn't white visible, right? We'll cover it with this black paint. And always still remember to try your best to cover, to keep it symmetrical, right? So whatever you do at the top or at the bottom, you want to do it on the other side too. Actually, this might be easier if you use your flat brush. That way you can just go straight through it. All right, so I ended up giving it a little bit of a raised bump here. So I I'll make sure to do the same on the other side. Right. There you go. All right, that looks good. Cool. Actually, so the next step now that we have both our trees and our backgrounds, we want to do the stars before we do the moon. So for this section, you just need something that has a very, very small point, so we can do these little circles, right? So I used a pencil. Use the tip of a pencil. I dipped it in my white, just like this. And then strategically, you just add the little white dots in areas where you would want to see some stars, right? We don't want to go too low, so maybe just keep them on here. You can add as many as you want. You can even add a shooting star if you want. Awesome. All right, so for this next section, this is where we want to be a little bit careful. And this is the moon and the sun. It's always hard to make a circle, right? You always try to fix it, and sometimes it just becomes a little bit worse. And that's okay, it happens. But we are going to try our best to make these circles around the same size, right? And if you look very, very closely, they're probably not the same size, and it's not going to be the end of the world if they're not. But more or less, you want them to sort of seem like they're the same size, and they're positioned in the same sections too. So just like I mentioned earlier, it's easier to start small and then go a little bit bigger and bigger. So that's exactly what we're going to do here. These circles, they are specific colors. So for the sun part, it's going to be a pastel yellow. So what that means is we're going to add a little bit of white to, or actually a little bit of yellow to our white. And then for the moon section, that's going to be more of a lighter blue. So we're going to do the same, where we're going to add a little bit of blue to our white. And that's what we're going to use to make the circle. So I'm going to use a flat brush to make the circles. I feel like it's easier this way. That way we can cover more paint. But if you feel more comfortable using a smaller brush, like a round brush, it will take a little bit longer, but you'll be a little bit more. You'll be able to be a little bit more detailed with that. Okay, so I'm gonna do the sun section first, seeing how the bottom section still has some paint that needs to be dry. Just there's this section here that I need to cover. Okay. Okay, so on your paint palette, you want to pour some white, so the same size, about the size of a quarter, and you'll pour a little bit of yellow, a little bit, that's probably like the size of a dime, and we'll go ahead and mix those up. Make sure that your brush doesn't have any traces of the black that we just used. Okay, once you mix it, you should get this nice little pastel yellow. It reminds us of Easter, or those peeps, right? And then we'll just go ahead and position our small circle. You can use this section, the middle section, right, or the top section, as the reference point for where we want to start our circle. Right, so that's already a nice start. But now we want to make sure that our sun and moon, that they're big, right? Because it's the fall equinox. It's the sun and the moon need to be the stars, the stars of the show, right? Although the stars probably don't like that. Okay. All right, so you want to try your best to grab your nice big circle. Okay, that was nice. I always want to step back a little bit to see where it needs a little fixing. Does that look okay? Does that look like a circle? Yeah, that looks good. So this is going to be the size of my sun, which means I want the same size for my moon. So we'll leave it there. Once we start painting the moon, if we end up needing to fix the sun, we can always go back. So it's not going to be an issue. So now we can go ahead and flip it. All right, so so funny how when you flip it, you start noticing your circle a little bit different, right? This section definitely needs to be a little bit bigger. Okay, there you go. Awesome, so now we'll switch to our moon, and to do that, we're gonna do the same thing we did with our yellow and white. So we'll pour some white onto our palette, and then we'll pour a small smidge of blue, and then that way it gives our moon a little bit of a glow, right? That way it's not just a white moon, it has a little bit of color to it. So we'll mix those up, and you should start getting that powder blue you typically see in like little baby blankets, right? Like this. We'll do the same thing. So we'll position our, I just poured some paint on me. We'll position our circle at the very center. The small one, for starters. I want to make sure that it ends up being the same or about the same size as our sun that's at the bottom. And this might take some time, right? The trick is to just go for it, right? Worrying too much, you'll probably mess it up. You sometimes just have to go for it, and you'll fix it as you move forward. Awesome. So I'm loving how this moon came about to do so easily. Now I just want to fix it a little bit here. Okay. Flip it a little bit. Let's see. Alright, so my moon definitely got a little bit bigger. No worries. Alright. I just want to round off my moon a little bit more. Just here in this section. Awesome. And there you have it, folks. We have our painting of the fall equinox. Nice. And if you're feeling a little bit more creative, feel free to add anything in each section, right? You can add something here, and maybe the same thing at the bottom if you'd like. You can add maybe some grass, another little tree, or a house. That could be fun. But yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today for a guided painting lesson. Hopefully you had a good time. And if you did participate, we'd love to see your artwork, so feel free to comment your photo onto the comment section. That way we can all see your awesome masterpieces. Thank you for joining me today, and we will see you next time. Have a good one.